Welcome to the broadcast, everybody. Thank you so much for dropping by to spend a few moments with me. Put on the kettle, pull up a throne and share a cup of tea with me. Let's sip that tea while it's piping hot, shall we? We'll do that, we'll have a chit chat and we'll go through a couple of comments and questions, and then it's another time for Tip Jar Corner, because that went down very well with you a couple of days ago, and I've got some more things to show you from the charity shop and the vintage fair. So we'll be doing that in a moment. That's a nice thing to do for a Sunday, isn't it, I think? But yes, have you been hearing this gossip about Rachel Ragland and a return to Instagram? Because I don't know if you remember or if you recall, but it was actually moi that broke those exclusive whispers to you last year, almost a year ago, from the chitter-chatter that I was hearing behind the scenes. Anyway, that's been emanating in the press this week. Lots of whispers about that fateful return to Instagram and Meghan's role as a super influencer. And there's nothing wrong with being an influencer whatsoever, but when you could have had the influence of an ambassador of the Commonwealth, and you have the gall and the gumption to reject that so that you can become some royal version of Martha Stewart. Actually, I don't want to denigrate Martha Stewart, but you know what I mean? Selling your wares, commercialising, brandishing your brand for all to see. It rots the stomach, doesn't it? Rots the bile. It's the antithesis of royalty, is exactly what it is. The antithesis of royalty. Anyway, did you hear that the whispers were that this handle appeared on Instagram, at Meghan? This was last summer when this happened, and it coincided with the time when Meghan was interviewed by The Cut, by Alison P. Davis, who seemed to get the measure of this girl in a sort of underhanded way. And Meghan confided in Alison P. Davis, "Can I share a secret with you? You know, girl talk, no one's listening except the rest of the world. I'll share a secret. I'm getting back on Instagram." And so she gave Alison P. Davis this exclusive news that she's returned to Instagram. You know, the whole world's waiting. They're waiting for the Ragland Rainbow Tour to jettison into motion. Or the, what is it, South Park called it? The Worldwide Privacy Tour. The Worldwide Privacy Tour. Well, she apparently gave Alison P. Davis the exclusive, but then a few weeks later she called up and reneged on that exclusive. You know, look at me, don't look at me. Look at me. Why are you looking at me? I want my privacy. It's all along that kind of line, isn't it? Then she reneged and said that she was no longer sure that she would actually return to Instagram. They're trying to drag you out there, my dear, against your will. Is that what Sunshine Ballsacks were doing? Is that why you jumped ship or were pushed? Anyway, regardless, apparently this @Meghan hashtag is the rare sort of hashtag that only an A-list celebrity is offered. You know, just @Meghan, not @Meghan16832 or whatever, you know, like @Amanda, @Joan, @John, @Meghan. But this account appeared under that hashtag with a profile photograph, a childhood photograph of Meghan's that had never been seen before, apparently. But when a few people started getting wind of it and fans started joining that account, then it was changed to a pink dahlia. And people say, well, why was it a pink dahlia? Some people have pointed to the fact that it could be pointing to Meghan's childhood nickname from Doria, which was Flower. But regardless, what is obvious and what is evident is that Meghan does have a vast opportunity to make a lot of money from a social media presence, and it is much too tempting for her to put off for much longer or turn away. So I have no doubt in my mind that she will at some point be returning, and people are saying that it might be sooner rather than later, because we all know what happens when she goes quiet, don't we? We all know what's wearing away behind the scenes. It certainly doesn't mean that she is not spending her time in industry, sending out worker bees from her hive as Queen of Montecito. Who needs the dusty old dead Queen Lilling-Bet? We've got Lilling-Bet too. And also they've got Lilling-Bet, because the other whispers that have been emanating is that it was at the wedding vow renewal of the degenerate family of Montecito. Beloved Ellen and Portia de Rossi, that pair, the degenerates. It was reportedly at their renewal of the wedding vows, where Meghan and Harry were in attendance, that they met the acquaintance of a certain gentleman by the name of Adam Lilling. And that's what I speak of when I speak of Lilling-Bet. They're betting on Lilling to raise their profile. By the way, I've never understood, and I really don't want to offend anybody out there that's had wedding vow renewals. I'm sure there are very good reasons to have them. I just find it a bit of an oxymoron. A wedding vow is a vow. If it's broken or withered, then that's the end of the vow. I don't really see how it can be renewed, reaffirmed. I can sort of understand that. But it goes over my head, I must say. But I'm old-fashioned. But a vow is a vow. Is a vow? Perhaps in 2023, like many other things, it's not what it appears to be. I digress. This Adam Lilling, this Lilling-Bet, is a Hollywood deal maker. He's a venture capitalist, and reports are suggesting that he might have been hired by at least Meghan, possibly Meghan and Harry, to shake things up a bit at Archewell. He's the founder of Plus Capital, which aims to partner, and get this is what they say, the world's top influencers, those who can effect more change in a day than most can in a lifetime, with the best entrepreneurs and operators in the world. Operators, yes, the biggest operator in the world. Well, you'll certainly have that in Rachel Raglan, my dear. You'll have the number one of all time. Bar none, a smooth operator. Coast to coast, LA to Chicago. I want to read out a comment that I received from a viewer who is also a psychiatrist, who speaks about the trap that Harold fell into. And I also want to say at this point that I am always so intrigued to hear what you do as an occupation about your life. It really tickles me, the wide variety. And especially, I've got to say, and I want to make a special mention to those of you who have YouTube channels, and I'm not really talking about royal-related channels or anything that you might associate with this channel, this platform, but I will occasionally get, I know that I've got a church organist who comments sometimes. I've watched you play on your channel, my dear. You're based in Wales. I can't remember your name offhand, but I've watched you a little bit. I've watched, there are those that have gardening channels and give some tips for their allotment. I've had a farmer, I've had a viscountess who is charged with the running of the grand country home and residence. That's very interesting. I'm mentioning all this, by the way, because I want to specifically ask you, if you've got a YouTube channel, not for promotional reasons or anything, but just leave me a comment below, please, and I will do my best to go through the comments and just look at what you do in life. I had one channel from a gentleman who runs a second-hand bookstore here in the kingdom, which was very interesting to see. And I'm not promising that I'll be able to respond to all, but I will certainly, if you leave it, I will have a glance. It's just interesting for me to know who's out there, because I get to see all your comments, which is very lovely, and get to find out your personalities that way, but there's nothing that really substitutes or putting a face to the names and everything. So do make yourself known to me, my dear, and I will check you out. In all seriousness, it'd be nice to check you out. Anyway, Nurse Rambo says, hang in there, King Charles. Harry's radically changed personality is not wearing well amongst his contacts and friends. He was frankly bamboozled by a woman whose main goal in life is status, money, and high position. Those are empty goals that will bring her very little happiness. I am a psychiatric nurse and have learned through a lot of clinical experience that some children emotionally never develop past their chronological age at the time of the trauma. Harry doesn't exhibit the maturity of a man approaching 40. He has a lot of endearing qualities, but the majority of his emotional dysregulation is truly in the prepubescent area still. Maybe even physically as well. No, we won't talk about that frostbitten part. I think it may be a good idea to find him a different therapist with a different approach. I admire King Charles. You have much to be commended for. He certainly does. And I read that out because that point has been echoed by other professionals that stopped by here. And it only goes to show how much knowledge and insight there is in the fruit basket among you guys, whether or not you consider yourself a basketeer. The knowledge that can be garnered from the messages that many of you leave. Of course, we get some fun ones, some acidic ones, some jollity and some gaiety, but also some intellectual ones. And I don't have an intellectual mind, and it's good for me to learn the education I get, and not in a condescending way. And that is why this very forum and this very fruit basket has attained a reputation as the forum for comments of distinction. Yes, this very comment section has developed a reputation as being the most well-informed comment section on the whole of YouTube. And I have you to thank for that. And I thank you most sincerely. Now, did you also hear this rather juicy story that was doing the rounds in the tabloids over the past couple of days? Involving the wedding of Brooklyn Beckham and Nicola Peltz. That wedding was last summer, wasn't it? And there was much talk at the time about Harry and Meghan being snubbed from the invitation list. Well, there's some disagreement over whether or not they were finally invited to the wedding, but what we've certainly learned is that there was some confusion regarding their attendance at the wedding or their invitation. And it also seems that this Nicola Peltz character is somewhat of a bridezilla, because many of her text messages or WhatsApps have been released because the Peltz family are suing their wedding planner. You couldn't make it up, could you, this? The Peltz family are suing their wedding planners. You just see this flock of wedding planners. What would you call, a murder of crows, a flamboyance of wedding planners? Because I think for flamingos, the official thing is the flamboyance of flamingos, isn't it? Which is rather wonderful. A tantrum of wedding planners, a sycophancy of wedding planners. The list could be endless, couldn't it? But they're suing wedding planners for alleged mistakes that were made during the planning, and they released so many text messages from this Nicky Peltz character, who was very demanding. I have to say, whether or not it was done in humour or there's various context to it, I can't say. I can't really judge her, but it wasn't very professional, whether or not the wedding planners were doing their job. Anyway, at one point, Claudia Peltz, the mother of Nicola, texts Nicola Peltz to say, "Did Meghan get an invite?" And Nicola's reply is, how delicious. "Who's Meghan?" You've got to love it. You've got to love it. Who's Meghan? It's not like Madonna, is it? And then further insult is added to injury after Nicola says, "Who's Meghan?" And her mum replies, "And Harry." So she couldn't even reply Meghan Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, Meghan Ragland, Meghan Wench, whatsoever. She had to respond with, "And Harry." Meghan and Harry. That's Meghan's surname now. And Harry. Bonnie Tipton, the Bonnie Bells of Bonnie Tipton, says, "I am wondering, would you happen to know if King Charles will keep the tradition that dictates that an English composer will create a new piece specifically for the coronation? In the past, such composers as Handel and Walton have contributed big numbers to these events. Do you happen to know if there will be a new piece of music and who might be composing it?" Thank you. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do know, Bonnie Tipton. And to be quite frank, you probably know by now as well. But the answer to your question is the same composer that composed the music for the Rainbow Tour featuring Rachel Ragland. Sorry, wrong actress. I meant Rainbow High featuring Ava Peron, otherwise known as Evita, Rachel's idol. And who am I pointing to for those of you that don't know the world of the musical? Andrew Lloyd Webber. Yes, he's been roped into proceedings, and he will be he has the great honour of providing the coronation anthem. He is composing the coronation anthem, and he's basing it, unfortunately, from what I hear, he's not collaborating with Tim Rice, but he is collaborating with the Bible, because the words are being adapted from Psalm 98, which is a psalm based around the subject of enthronement, so it's very apt. and it celebrates God being king. It's a freedom psalm, they say, about the liberation of Israel from captivity, and beyond that it celebrates the kings from David's line. This isn't the first time, I believe, that Lloyd Webber's been involved with royal celebrations and composing music for them. I think he did some stuff for the Diamond Jubilee and a few other various bits and bobs, and he's obviously enormously capable. I'm a great fan of many of his musicals, a great fan. I am a little bit tetchy because, turning to Evita, for example, I think that's a fantastic musical, especially seen on stage, especially on stage. I didn't like, well, when I say I didn't like the Madonna movie of it, yes, actually I did enjoy it and I've watched it many times, but it wasn't really to my taste. Alan Parker's sort of attempt at a natural feeling to the musical wasn't to my taste. I wanted high camp melodrama, which is what you see in the stage show of Evita when she's Rainbow High. And what I did not appreciate about the movie version is that they wrote a new song for it as a vehicle for Madonna to release as a single, and they threw in You Must Love Me, which was quite a big hit, but I don't feel that it fit very well, and I feel that it jarred with the rest of the musical, and I feel that it wasn't up to standard as the rest of the musical was and is. So I'm just a little bit tetchy, because I know that he is capable of absolutely fantastic things, but also the odd clangor and the odd disappointment. But I'm sure that my fears will be totally unfounded, and if the king has faith in him, then so do I. And as well as that commission, in total there are 12 newly commissioned pieces of music that will be performed, and it will showcase musical talent from all over the kingdom and the Commonwealth. There will be a range of musical styles which blend tradition, heritage and ceremony with the new musical voices of today, reflecting the King's lifelong love and support of music and the arts. His Majesty has personally commissioned the new music and shaped and selected the musical programme for the service. 6 orchestral commissions, 5 choral commissions, 1 organ commission have been specially composed for the occasion by world-renowned British composers. The Coronation March is being provided by Patrick Doyle, and liturgical sections will be performed in Welsh, and the official royal harpist will perform. How I love the harp. It's one of those things that I wish, we all have those things, those list of things that we wish we had learned as children. You know what I mean, my dears? And playing the harp would have been another ambition. It's wonderful to watch, isn't it? And I could have imagined myself as some cherub harping on. The king has also asked for Greek Orthodox music to be played in tribute to the late Duke of Edinburgh. Well, my dears, if you wish to hang out with me for a little bit longer, then it is time. Yes, it is time for us to escape to that sparkling, twinkling grotto that you've all come to know and love so very, very well. Let's sojourn and escape from this cruel world to that secret jewel-encrusted cavern where the likes of the Koh-i-Noor and the Cullinan feel right at home, my dear. Yes. Welcome to Tip Jar Corner. A warm welcome to Tip Jar Corner, everybody. It's missed you. We will have a caddy of lovely things in just a moment, and I will also follow it up by reading a very touching comment that I received in the past week that actually moved me to a little tear. Meet this fancy rooster, or chook, or cockerel, whatever it is, my dear. Isn't it splendid? I love that pink, punky Mohican crown adorning the head, the flourish of the feathers, and that menacing gold brassiness of the feet. These earrings of green shard went down very well with you when I wore them the other day. They are so watery, aren't they? So glistening. I like the contrasting colour between the emerald and the diamond, shall we say. And the green in particular puts me in mind of the green emerald pincushion in Return to Oz. You know, that sequel with Fairuza Balk. It puts me in mind of that green pincushion which so enchanted me as a child on these green jemmies that shimmer and shine. And green again we have here in the form of hoops. I'm not quite sure if I'll ever wear these. They're not quite so pretty or as jewelly, but worth a quick show with this marbled effect. And amethyst earrings here, large inside in a glorious violet purple colour. Lots of petals there on each one, with diamonds in the middle in another floral design and some tiny diamonds surrounding it, all kinds of shapes there, but just beautiful, beautiful colours. Excited to wear those. And I paired them here with a book that I happened to pick up for no particular reason other than the fact that I rather liked the colour, and I thought that it would be useful to have a compendium of various scribblings and scrawlings, I think, of Noel Coward. I haven't even really taken a look at it yet, but I'm sure I'll have fun doing so. And I can imagine that I'm Margot, you know, Princess Margaret, my dear, shooting the breeze at some sort of gay party with Mr. Coward in attendance. And these long black jetty beaded earrings, also as well deserved a little airing. Really quite long they are, so we'll see what I find to pair with them. And green again here in these heart-shaped earrings that I'm wearing for you today. I was going to come with a very simple white look today, but I just couldn't resist throwing in a little bit of spring green. You've seen this brooch before, by the way. Green and black. I love those colours together. Green and black, male and female pharaohs. Lovely, juicy apple green quality this one has. And so delicate the way that it's surrounded by those tiny little pearl drops, isn't it? Really gorgeous. Like a tempting iced gem, one could almost pop it in the mouth and crunch it up for a juicy and tart apple-flavoured treat. And I told you, didn't I, that I was going to get my hands on this book, The Art of Memoir, and get my hands on it. I did. I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to read it. And if there's some interesting stuff to bring to you, I will. If you're not aware, this is a book that has been name-checked by J.R. Moehringer as a huge influence on him, and also Harry mentioned speaking with J.R. Moehringer about the art of memoirs. I want to see what duckings and divings they get up to behind the scenes and what has inspired some of the more outlandish stories and tall tales that we heard in Spare. But yes, even some of the names of the various chapters are rather interesting. Sacred Carnality, How to Choose a Detail, or Omit Several perhaps. Hucksters, The Deluded, and Big Fat Liars. I picked up this pink vase absolutely ages ago, but I don't think I showed it to you, and that was from a charity shop. It was actually £7.95 I saw when I looked on the bottom, so it wasn't that much of a bargain, but it was a very large vase, although I haven't brought many fresh blooms to you recently, simply because it's been so out of season, and they were getting in the way and annoying me, to be quite honest. I got quite sick and tired of pruning them constantly. They're moving about, dying on me very quickly, even with a lot of the tips and tricks that you have shared with me when it comes to flowers. But they will be returning over spring. I'm sure we'll get some tulips in for tulip season, for example. But this vase, to be honest with you, will be too, I'm sure I'll bring it out for an airing, but it's too large really to use here, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I paired it with some feathers to show you in this caddy. Maybe I'll use it for feathers in a future video, but it is nice. It is a really nice vase, and I never feel that a penny's wasted, and that's the joy of Tip Jar Corner, because I source the vast majority of these things from charity shops, so that £8 more or less went to charity and will return to charity when I redonate it at some point in the future. So for me, it is the gift that keeps on giving. Many of you admired the scarf of yellow Devore, or should I say gold Devore, that I wore in the previous broadcast. It's lovely, isn't it? That one was from the vintage fair. I've no idea if it was second hand or a new piece. I presume it's second hand, because it was from one of the more boutique-y stalls at this particular vintage fair, and it was £20, so still a very reasonable price and really quite gorgeous. I'm sure you'll see that again and again, because it's quite luscious, isn't it? And I love it. And of course today, and in the last show, you'll have noticed the candelabrum behind me. Isn't it absolutely lovely? I picked that one up some time ago as well. That was £15, and I'd never seen anything quite like it before, so I thought I'd get it. And I actually thought that it would be too large to present to you. That was my fear, but it goes quite well in the background, doesn't it? I daren't put it right next to me, or I'll probably set myself alight. A bit nervous about that one as well. I have to have a fire extinguisher to hand. And I will throw in this bit of trivia here, because it's quite fun to be a smart aleck at times, isn't it? And throw a little bit of trivia into conversation. And if you really want to annoy your friends, and you happen to be discussing candelabra, it might happen, They might want to know that really, truly, what you see behind me is a candelabrum, and the plural of that is candelabra. In modern parlance, most people would call what you see behind me a candelabra and pluralize it into candelabras. But that's not really, it is absolutely acceptable in modern parlance, I get that, but it's not really authentic, my dear. And if you were to go back 100 years, 200 years even, you would find that the singular form is candelabrum. That is not a candelabra, it is a candelabrum. And if you have many of them, it is then candelabra, as you would see, Liberace surrounded by candelabra. But in modern parlance, it's more vulgar. If I sound condescending and patronizing, I'm terribly sorry. I don't really know how to relate to you these issues without sounding like I'm being a bit grand, but I'm just playing, my dear. Playing with language, but sometimes it's a little bit fun to play, isn't it? And say, well, actually, my dear, that's a candelabrum. And I do apologise if you knew this already, but I know that many of you didn't. So it's quite fun just to stick a little bit of trivia like that into the pocket and brandish it, whichever occasion might benefit you in the future, my dear. You know what I mean? Just to keep yourself fruity and haughty. This purpley magenta pendant that I've actually worn in a recent broadcast, but I haven't shown it to you yet, isn't the droplet d'Avoon, and it's interwoven with sort of gold braid around the edges, and there are actually 3 strands that fall around the neck, and this splendid colour actually puts one in mind of the love juice in A Midsummer Night's Dream. And as you know, my finds always come from my local charity shops, second-hand stores, the vintage fair, and that includes vintage bookshops, second-hand stores for books. And I found this absolutely, sometimes books find you, don't. Actually, I've got to say, I'm very fortunate in that respect. Many things in life do not come to me without a struggle and a fight, my dear. But one thing that does come to me is the right book at the right time. I barely have to raise a finger and it leaps into the palm of my hand. And this was one of those occasions. I saw River Diary, so obviously it spoke to me in a very personal way. I am a child of the river, literally. Not only did I grow up on the riverbank, but I was born to the river. And that is why that particular body of water means a lot to me. So, of course, the name itself gave itself to me, but also as did the picture. I love the cover of this book. It's from 1950. It's by Dorothea Eastwood, and I just knew that I would love it from the feel of it. And when it leapt into the palm of my hand, I just knew that I would love it. And actually, I've been looking for something to provide the sort of comfort that this book provides me. I think I've spoken to before about my love for the book by Susan Hill called The Magic Apple Tree. I love that book. It's a year in the life of a woman living in the countryside, sort of idyllic English countryside. And it's the kind of book I adore. It's the kind of writing I adore. Just like my favourite author, Dorothy Whipple from the 1930s. In her books, these things aren't everybody's taste, but it's my taste. Nothing much happens, but it's about observations, observing people, quiet stillness and what can be found within it, the treasures within. I love it when a writer can convey the character of man and of their God, actually. This book, The River Diary, also intertwines a love of nature, because this book is about a year in the life of a river and the writer who lived and camped out in a hut next to a river for much of every year of her life. And it tells the tale of the river. And I'm actually only about 75 pages into the book, so I don't know how it'll pan out, but I'm enjoying it. It talks about the alders and the hazels and the different trees that surround and inform the river during different times of the year. And as you learn about the different ways that the animals use the river banks and the river and the water and the communities around it as an oasis, as a haven, as a banquet at times, you also learn about the way that life and humanity are inspired by nature to ignite a love of the divine, because religion, in my personal opinion, is an invention of man, and even something like sacred texts like the Bible that people will accept as the word of God, I might accept it as divinely inspired, but I do not believe that God's voice can be translated into words. I don't wish to offend anybody, but for me personally, I'm more convinced by this sort of writing and the way that they translate the workings of nature into something mystical and divine and godly. And it is through reading a book like this, or indeed The Magic Apple Tree, that I feel drawn much closer to God. So that's why this kind of thing strikes the heart of me. And admittedly, the other reason that I enjoy those kind of books is that it takes me back to a time before I was born, but to a time that I feel a great kinship for. I suppose you would say post-war Britain, which I'm sure had its cruelties and its brutalities as every other era, but seemed kinder, gentler, more community-based, away from the incessant qualities of the social media age, from which we have no escape from now because it's out of the box. Pandora's box is opened, hasn't it, and the worms escaped. But admittedly, one likes to retreat back into those cosier times, and that's what these books are very good for. There was a stall of sham jewellery too, popular with lovers, the rubies luscious and translucent as red currants, the emeralds greener than green seas, their resplendent golden settings awakening images of wealth beyond the dreams of avarice. And we are going to finish Tip Jar Corner today with some words from a gentleman who very kindly left me a tip yesterday in the tip jar. Thank you for the treat, my dear Peter Wilcock. This was such a lovely comment. And to be fair, I get lovely comments under every broadcast. I wish that I could read every single one of them out, but you understand that I can't, my dear. There are thousands, and I'm certainly not complaining about that. So I can only pick the odd one out here to share my joy in receiving them. But this was a lovely, lovely comment. I know that some of you will enjoy me reading it out, and it did move me. It really did move me, as many of your comments do. Don't think that they don't go unnoticed, just because I can't respond to them all, because I do read them. Peter Wilcox says, "My sister introduced me and my husband, Philip, to your channel last summer, shortly after my gorgeous mum passed away at almost 93. I was mainly intrigued, as my mum, born in 1929, I was told loved your broadcasts. Long story very short, my mum in 1991 struggled badly with my coming out. She was of an age when things like that deviated from the perceived normal. But long before her passing, she became so understanding and kinder than ever. She died 8 weeks exactly before Queen Elizabeth, having loved the Jubilee Day with all of us together. So I started watching you, knowing my mum loved you, and of course was dismayed to witness Harry and Meghan. Thank God, both fantastic elderly ladies never experienced the full extent of that pair's shocking and disrespectful behaviour towards family. Anyway, we too are now fans of all your broadcasts, intelligent, erudite, mischievous, and ultimately kind. The qualities my lovely mum loved. Thank you. Long may you reign. Tip jar with pleasure." Thank you very much, Peter Wilcock. I was absolutely thrilled to hear that your mother shared some fruity moments and had lots of fun watching my broadcasts and spending time here. It's a privilege. It's an absolute privilege, and even more fun to hear that after her passing you learned about us here at the Fruit Basket and seem to have enrolled yourself as a basketeer along with your beloved and members of your family. It's heartwarming. It is truly heartwarming. And I appreciated your comment, and I'm sure that my viewers did as well. So thank you for that. Thank you very much for checking into this show. I hope you enjoyed it, and hope you enjoyed Tip Jar Corner, and I'll be back during the week with another broadcast, and I look forward to seeing you then. Channel the royal spirit. And toodle pip.